Our guest this evening reflects on that very thing. The phone lines will be open here shortly for any questions, comments, or concerns. But we would like to introduce to you a woman for the last 30 years that has worked with Human Trafficking Act and is the woman who created the Sex Workers 12-Step program. Now, in regards to Mr. Margold's adult SARS are not sex workers, the section of this program is devoted for those individuals in the sex working industry and not the adult film industry to itself. We would like to welcome Ms. Jody Williams to Union Politics.
How people are manipulating you in ways that you don't even realize. I just knew that I kept getting fired for no reason. I was doing a really good job at whatever restaurant I was at, and I kept getting fired. And I found out later that these men were actually following me, finding out where I was working, and going to the owner of the restaurant and threatening to burn it down if I wasn't fired.
No way.
Absolutely. And I went back to some of the owners and verified, did this really happen? Did they really do this? And they threatened to burn down my club or, restaurant. And the point was to try to corner me financially, literally trying to get me financially desperate. And so, I got financially desperate. And, didn't ease me into the business of, we'll just start you answering the phones. And, just totally ease me into this business because what I walked into was not what you would think of with prostitution. I literally walked into an industry. These people had escorts, but they had in-call service. They had, all kinds of selling. They were involved in the production of pornography. They, just anything you could possibly think of. And I literally even opened the very first phone sex line in California. I mean, it was very much of an industry. It had nothing to do with sex, unlike what people think. It was a business. It was about money. And, one of the things that you hit on that was really difficult is the fact that there wasn't strip clubs like there are now. Not at all. I mean, basically, a lot of adult entertainment as far as dancers went were if it was a party or a club, clubs used to shut down for the night, have a private party, and then bring in dancers. It just wasn't like it is now. It was very much sort of clandestine kind of a thing. And so everything was cash, of course. And one of the problems, if you look at Los Angeles in the 1980s, there was a lot of stuff going on then. We had a record number of serial killers targeting everybody, strippers, prostitutes. I mean, if you were in that industry, you were targeted, and the police did nothing. Bodies were piling up in alleys, and police did absolutely nothing. And back then, unlike today, literally, you were not helped at all. If you showed up at a homeless shelter or a domestic violence shelter, you were actually rejected. You were rejected from drug treatment. And one of the reasons is they were afraid that your pimp was going to show up. And you could tell them you're blue in the face and you didn't have a pimp, and they just did not care. They did not listen. They did not care. In their mind, you were a criminal. 100%. Anybody in this industry was viewed as a criminal. So everything had to be done. And that's one of the reasons why the family recruited me. They did. Is I had a very clean-cut face, college girl, and I was able to do things like get leases and open bank accounts, etc. And I broke away from them, and it was really difficult because I was seeing people trapped by we weren't able to get credit. We weren't able to get insurance. We weren't able to just live like a normal person. We weren't able to build credit. Just the cash economy back then was just so difficult. It really was a form of its own trap. I got tired of all the police. I got tired of the pimps. And I literally said, I'm just going to set up a business. And I actually opened up a theater. I got this warehouse and opened up an adult theater. And in that theater, video cassette machines had just come out. So, and it wasn't like today, And what I did was I said you could come rent an adult movie in a private room with a nude hostess, and the sex was free. So therefore, there was no prostitution. It was a hoot. It was an absolute hoot. Everybody wanted to come with, because you didn't have to do anything. You could literally sit there and watch this movie with this guy. If you wanted to, you could take a tip, not take a tip, whatever you wanted. And it was all licensed. It was all above board. And I went and I got an accountant, and everybody got health insurance. We were able to file tax returns. And that was another thing. I didn't want IRS down on us for not paying our taxes. And everybody got paid by paycheck, because one of the things is that maniacs and cops like cash. decided that there was a problem with us having a normal life. And it was his mission to do everything he could to destroy us and to put us out of business. So he was like constantly trying to set me up, follow me around. And when he realized that I wasn't doing anything illegal, then he would try to plant drugs on me. It was a constant cat and mouse game with this guy. And when finally, he literally organized a task force to come after me, and I had a SWAT team dragging me out, literally with the helicopter of the SWAT team. I could not believe what this guy went to come after me. And I literally said to him, I said, I've made everything clean and safe, and everybody's got, a check, and everybody's got credit, and nobody's being beaten, and everybody's safe. What is wrong with you? Why would you shut this down? Because I was literally running like the only place in town. And in my mind, there was a lot of women that were able to get away from very violent, dangerous pimps, because they could come and literally get away from them and come stay there. And we had security keep these guys at the door. I'm like, why would you do this? Why would you stop us from what we're doing? And he literally had an attitude that I have found very common, actually, among a lot of people, is that you should be out there on the corner where you belong. I mean, it just blew my mind that some people have this kind of attitude about us. But they do, And, I was sitting with my attorney, and I said, this is ridiculous the way that we're treated. Absolutely ridiculous. We provide a valuable service, whatever it is that we're doing, and I don't understand this attitude at all. And he said to me, you know what? He said, as long as you're in the business, you'll never be able to do a damn thing to change it. He said, the only way that you're going to ever even be listened to is if you quit. He said, otherwise they're going to be able to shut you out. He said, until you become a quote-unquote normal citizen, they will shut you out of every door because they're going to classify you as a criminal, no matter what you do. He said, if you really want to change it, you're going to have to quit. Oh, my God. I had over $1 million in real estate, cash, property, everything they confiscated from me when I was 24 years old, and I'm going to have to quit. This was difficult, very difficult. I was not a drug addict. I did not have a pimp, I mean, I'm making money hand over fist. And, our phone sex operation was dragging in like $30,000 a week, and it was basically, he had a point. He said, when have you ever seen them listen to anybody in the business? And I'm like, okay, I'll do this. Because another thing I did not understand is the way they were dragging thought. They were literally going into clubs, they were going into massage parlors, just dragging off women, throwing them in buses, ruining their lives, taking their kids away from them. I did not understand this at all. But then I'm seeing a drug addict, neglecting their child, being told that they can go out to treatment instead of jail. That was just like beyond my comprehension. And then I was explained that the reason for that is that there was no legal system set up to provide an alternative. That there were programs for the addict to go to, but there was nothing for us if we were arrested for prostitution. And nobody wanted to deal with us. Nobody wanted to work with us. Back in '86, right before I started this, they literally had a proposition out where they wanted to take us out to an island and quarantine us. Us, gays, and donkeys. They wanted to take us to an island, literally, and quarantine us. That's the way that we were being viewed at that time. So, thank God that got defeated, because I'm like, they're going to haul me out to an island, never to be heard from again. Oh, great, and it blew my mind. Because I was also seeing actual sex trafficking happening before the term was coined. Back in my day, the only word we had for it was white slavery. There really wasn't even a word for it. Because if you went around to people and said that there were people being sold by our government, to steal oil deals and drug deals, there was just no word for it. And if anybody wonders what I mean by that, there's an opening sequence in Enter the Dragon I love, and I sometimes do think Bruce Lee might have actually been killed before that movie came out. Because the opening sequence where he explains that there's laws about drugs, there's laws about, guns, but there's literally no law to stop American women cooperation from the courts. The police stopped working with us. The police literally used to hand out our card if somebody was in trouble and say, here, call them, they'll help you out. Because there was no help if you had a pimp back then bothering you. There was none. There was no way that you could call the police. There was nowhere to go, so, we were it. And even if you wanted to stop, we didn't make a distinction. If you got sick, you got old, you wanted to quit the business, we were providing support for you. And if you had problems with a pimp, we could get you out of that situation. So whatever your problem was, they would tell us, we were the first hotline for anything. And basically, it was any problems you had, you called us. But in 96, it was really strange. The court all of a sudden just started pulling away from us, and I did not know what was going on. And then I thought, after the Trafficking Act was passed in 2000, I thought that would change things. Because what they were telling me was back then, if you were raped or kidnapped or beaten, and you went to victim services, and it didn't matter if you were a prostitute or a stripper or in pornography, it did not matter. In their mind, you were all the same. They would refuse you any type of victim assistance, just purely on the fact that you were in the sex industry. It didn't matter if anything you did was legal, but if you worked in the industry and you were raped and you went to victim services, they would not provide you with any assistance. And I don't think that's right, especially for those that were in legal professions that had no criminal records. It made no sense to me that they would penalize you and not provide you with the same services as a housewife who was raped. So we were told that the money would be available for us once the Trafficking Act was passed because it would then allow that American women could be provided with government services. And that was another thing I didn't understand. If you were Chinese, the government would roll out the red carpet